So Valerie, we had a conversation. We had dialogue before we jumped on a Zoom call together. And let's just talk courageous decisions. What came up for you when you heard the term courageous decision? What were some of your initial reactions? What were you sitting with, wrestling with?
Goodness. Well, my first reaction was, I'm sold. What is it about? And then my second reaction was, well, because courage is one of my personal values.
Right.
And so anytime you make a courageous decision, you're using that heart muscle, which is where courage comes from, I believe. And so when you're talking about courageous decisions and the way in which you pose questions to folks and you really get them talking about this topic and how it surfaces in their lives, it's fascinating. And so I just thought, well, first of all, I'm honored. Second of all, heck yeah, let's dive in.
Right.
So when I think about courageous decisions, I think I've taken a number of them. And I think that's how I arrived at having courage as a value. Having or identifying courage as a value did not predate my making courageous decisions. Does that make sense?
It totally does. You started making them, but it wasn't necessarily, and if I'm putting words in your mouth,
No.
It wasn't necessarily conscious, right? It was just you were making decisions and you began to realize maybe you're on this path of courageous decision making. Was that like an awakening of sorts?
100%.
Okay.
I realized that the more I made them, not that they get easier, but that I developed more faith in a positive outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So, and I think that any decision we make that requires courage, whether it's quote unquote large or quote unquote small, right? It is a step in the right direction, a step in the direction of living authentically, of doing what is right for us. And that isn't always the first choice people make, right? And so when I think of examples, it can be seemingly small, like deciding to tell someone something about yourself, right? Something that, for instance, I'll give you a great example. I am from Georgia, the state. I've lived in the country, Georgia too, but I'm from the state of Georgia, and I naturally have a Southern accent. And you probably don't hear it a lot, but it comes out when I get really passionate. And it's because I spend so many years trying to hide it. When I allow it to come out, or when I've intentionally leaned into it to demonstrate that I'm proud of it, even though I know ridicule might be coming, because growing up with a Southern accent, I got made fun of all the time whenever I left the South. Right. Oh my gosh, all the time. Yeah. Oh, well, honey, is that how you talk? Oh, okay, well, let me slow it down for you so you can understand, excuse me, how I speak and my mental capacity have nothing to do with each other, right? The accent, the tone, that's just stereotypes. All right, I am also chief diversity officer, so let me pull myself back from being passionate about getting rid of stereotypes. Right. But that can be courageous in a position, right? Or in a situation, saying hi to someone new. Or it could be starting a relationship with someone different. Or it could be leaving a company. Right? So I noticed that I had this, let's call it a pattern of making courageous decisions. So I mentioned I'm a chief diversity officer. I'm also a lawyer. I'm a finance lawyer in recovery. And in law school, they always wanted to push us toward a particular path. Typically, big law firms, commercial law, that kind of stuff. And it really wasn't enticing for me. And I decided that I wanted to go work in Central America at a law firm that wouldn't hire me after graduation because that wasn't their hiring method. And it made me stick out like a sore thumb in the American hiring market because I hadn't followed the path. But I also knew that I needed to go do this because I needed to go live in another country. I needed to experience, I needed to form these relationships that were really important. And even though other people said, don't do it, it won't help you, it'll hurt you, right?
Yeah. I love what is authenticity then something, staying authentic to yourself, something you tie into courage as well? Because you really took a big left turn. All these amazing corporate jobs, probably plenty of money thrown at you. The path was pretty clear, right? How does authenticity and courage tie in together as you're making these decisions, go to South America, for example?
Right. No, that's actually a great connection. I think it can take courage to be authentic.
Yeah.
At least it does for me, not for everybody.
Right.
But I grew up a daughter of a politician where we were always taught to act as if there's a camera in the room. Our first priority is ensuring that that my parents' constituents are happy. And so it was all about external opinions and external image. And so who am I kind of doesn't matter. I just need to be a certain person. Does that make sense? Cool. So for me, being me took some digging to figure that out. And then also it still takes courage for me to make sure that I am being true to whoever that person is. Right? There are certain core parts of me that have been this way forever, and then there are other parts that are morphing. Like, I just think as we age and grow, we change. Another courageous decision I made, I think, was almost 20 years ago. I met my best friend and the love of my life, who is from another country, continent, culture, religion, and also is a parent. And so one could say, well, that's a whole lot of new change. Does it take courage to do that? I think it just takes courage to invest in people and be open to what they show us about ourselves, right?
Yes.
Life is a mirror for us. It takes courage to be in all sorts of relationships, work, family, and to develop a healthy relationship with ourselves.
Right.
And, but I will tell you the one decision I made where people were like, Valerie, don't do it. And it was one of the best things I ever did because I was doing it for myself. When I left the law, I left the legal industry, not just practice. I left the industry altogether. And I had spent, goodness, I don't know how many years working on diversity, corporate social responsibility, all that good stuff in law firms. And I was literally the face of what I did in law. Like on the website, my face is there, right? Yeah. And I wanted to leave the legal industry and go to tech because I really felt like it would help me grow. I felt like it would help me grow and learn things that I couldn't in the legal industry. And I also wanted to get closer to things that were true to me, cultural norms, experiences. And I literally had people at the top search firms in the country tell me, Valerie, you're going to tank your career. You're going to start all over. You're going to start from scratch. Yeah. And I did start building brand new relationships, a brand new network. And it's not easy. No. Not easy at all, but it was so worth it. I couldn't see the future.
No, totally. You had to kind of just jump off, the ledge, right? And trust that you could fly, right? Trust that you were ready for this experience. And that's such a common theme. What's also a common theme, and this may or may not apply to you, second guessing. Like you made a courageous decision, right? Right. So because what we're trying to do is this, and I love where you're going, is you're showing the anatomy of a courageous decision, right? Like, yeah, I made it. It didn't feel authentic to me. I left an industry. I married the love of my life, but that didn't necessarily come in a Tiffany box with a blue ribbon, right? There were some things there I had to navigate, negotiate, right? There's some things I maybe had to change. And now, so second guessing, does that, is there a loop in this on some level?
Oh my gosh, so much there. So yes, I second guess. You know what? I overthink.
Yeah.
I don't know that I second guess. I don't know if that's because I'm a very, very, very strong Myers-Briggs J. Like I love to make a decision to move on, right? I overthink literally in my sleep and during all waking hours. And that is challenging to manage. Meditation helps.
Okay.
Faith in myself, which I'm working on developing, helps. And trying to be objective, right? So you talked about the anatomy of a courageous decision. That sounds like a book title. Ahem. I'll be looking for it. Okay. Hit me up for a quote. All right. So the anatomy of a courageous decision for me starts with, what do you want?
Yeah.
And often what I want is crystal clear.
Immediately crystal clear, or does it come to you? I'm kind of curious.
I'm really thinking hard. What I want tends to be very clear for me.
Okay. Right.
Now, if my spouse were to hear that, he'd be like, who are you? Right? Because this does not apply to ordering at a restaurant. This does not apply to what kind of car I want. But rather when it comes to the big things in life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like Do I want to spend more time with family? Do I want to spend my time doing X task? What do I want to be when I grow up? I've had certain things crystal clear since I was 6 years old.
Yeah.
When I was a little wee kid, you ever heard of that game, like Three Wishes?
No.
Oh my gosh.
No.
So there's this game where, at least as a kid, I played it. If you had 3 wishes, what would you wish for? You can't wish for more wishes, but other than that, what would you wish for? And so I would wish for, I don't know, all the candy in the world, blah, blah, blah. But I also wished to be able to speak all the human and animal languages, to be able to bring all the species together and then conflict. This is what I wanted to do when I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
So I've known, maybe I even came in knowing that this was my work. My work is to help bring people together. It's to help end conflict. I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And I often formed ideas of what the end state would look like based on other people's inputs, right? What does society tell me? What do my parents tell me? What do my schools tell me, etc.? I always thought it meant diplomat. And so that's the route I initially planned to take. And then universe course corrected me rather harshly. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll go to law school instead because I could still use it. And then I ended up becoming a chief diversity officer for organizations. And I really function as sort of diplomat internally.
I was going to say that. It kind of feels like a diplomatic role, right? You're bringing people together. You're negotiating new agreements. You're tearing down walls, right? It does have that flair to it. And also, what I heard when you talked about being 6 years old and wanting to bring the kingdom, like the whole, everyone together, was justice. Like, is that, I don't know, is that a word that resonates?
For me, it's peace.
Peace, yeah.
I hate to say this, but I feel like justice can be very subjective.
Right.
Or subjectively determined. What's justice for you may not feel like justice for me.
Right.
But peace and harmony, not fake harmony, right? Not toxic positivity where everything's great and we're all nice to each other. No, but I mean truly having contentment and feeling an inner peace that what is happening outside of you is right with you. That is what I think so many people want. And if I can help in some small way, connect you with that feeling, or you with a place or an opportunity that allows you to develop that feeling or find that experience.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Yeah.
You know, it makes all the loans, all the law school loans worth it. It makes everything worth it.
Yeah, you know, when people find, the word that's come out for me is convergence. You kind of went through a series of experiences, and now that everything is like has been converging for you. And obviously, you've had a tremendous amount of success in the diversity space. And it's a passion, and it's something you're leading for a very, prestigious and substantial organization. And so, do you feel like looking back, you've been able to use the different aspects, like law school and what you're doing?
100%.
Even if it's not directly the law, maybe the way they taught you to think. Or
yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, before I actually ended up leaving in practice, I was a member of the international relations team for a U.S. regulator. Right. So the U.S. Public Accounting Regulator has an Office of International Relations, Office of International Affairs. And I was one of the leaders of that office. And we were basically like diplomats for this organization that's overseen by the SEC.
Okay.
And so I was, I'm not going to say how old I was, but I was definitely a lot younger than now. Walking into rooms, saying, hi, I'm so-and-so representing the United States. Right. Let's go sit down, central bank leader and negotiate something.
Right.
And so I kind of feel like if I have negotiated with insert country name here, insert supranational government entity here, I can handle this, right? Like I can learn from it.
So I love where you're going. You had some very powerful experiences early in your career, both academically and also pragmatically, that gave you like a lot of confidence. Is that correct? Or you talk about trusting your instincts. Maybe I'm using the wrong words, but you trusted like...
No. You're using all the right words, and it's forcing me to be really honest with myself. So you talked about convergence. I think right now I'm having a divergent moment because if I'm being totally honest, I have a lot of confidence in what I do and what I can accomplish.
Yeah.
But at any given moment, feeling confident in myself,
Right.
I don't always have that.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. And so can one always trust one's own feelings? Our feelings, feelings aren't facts is a saying that somebody told me a while back. And I thought, well, that's interesting. There's certainly.
Very true.
Yeah, I think
feelings aren't facts.
Right.
And feelings and thoughts are different.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to be as objective as possible and look back at what I've done. What have I done? What has the feedback been? What have the outcomes been? And not just how am I feeling in this moment because I haven't slept or I haven't eaten or whatever immediate factors are influencing how I feel. Does that make sense?
It does.
And it gets easier over time. I actually think that the outside noise can be just as challenging to tune out as the inside noise.
Totally. No question.
I mean, I can only imagine as an entrepreneur how you balance the two.
Early mornings.
Right?
Early mornings. Yeah.
Oh.
It's quiet. Yeah. I was at Pete's Coffee at 5:30 this morning. Because I can sit down and I know the crew, we've become friends. I got my cup of tea. I've got my books. I get to ease into the day. Absolutely. I've got it because the first feeling you can feel that pressure. You can feel that even anxiousness at times. Is that resonating at all? You can just,
Oh, well, I'm an empath. I feel everybody's anxiety, including my own.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't always know whose is whose. I'm working on that. But yes, I definitely know what you're talking about. Having the ability to work from home has been a game changer for my productivity and for my ability to focus. I used to not be able to work at home. I had to go into an office to be able to focus.
Right.
But now, I mean, it's just, I can control the light, the temperature, the sound, the everything, right?
Yeah.
And I can make sure that I'm setting myself up to do my best and be my best at all moments, which is fantastic. Because I do have a lot of internal noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
I know what you're talking about. I think a lot of folks do. And it's trying to navigate that, right? And I want to put three or four strands together here because I just hit on something that I think is really interesting is empath, internal noise, believing in yourself. And then you said early on that you grew up in a political family where it was an image, right? It was a certain image you have to portray. There was a certain role that you might have to, stated or unstated, there was a role, right? There was a role, there was a way you showed up in the world, there was a way you handled something. What was it like for that? Did you have to unwind and unpack? So you kept the good stuff, but unpack a whole bunch of stuff? Like, was there some thawing out? I guess the word coming out for me is thawing out. There was some, who am I? And so you're trying to integrate all these different, because you know, which may not be easy to do if you're in a very typecast type of family role.
I think that anyone who is a kid of insert blank will struggle with individual identity, family. Well, even if you aren't, the child of a, title or profession, in some of our families, the expectations can be overwhelming. The expectations can form our identities to a certain extent, right? And so I think that I went through a lot of phases growing up where I recognized I had tremendous privilege being able to learn from amazing people and pick up the phone and you never knew if it was going to be Bill Cosby or Bill Clinton. Like, it just, I didn't know that wasn't normal. And until I realized that all of these very abnormal occurrences are gifts.
Yeah.
They are, opportunities for me to learn and to build an arsenal of tools that I can use to help those who haven't had these experiences. Right. It does, however, mean that I didn't have a lot of privacy growing up. And so now I am extremely private. Despite this, I just like you, Ruben. But I tend to be really private and I really am focused on security.
Right.
Because I felt like I didn't have a lot of those growing up.
You grew up in a greenhouse, a glass house. And so now
I grew up in a fishbowl.
A few windows, okay. But I want some, right, okay.
And I needed to have physical space in order to come into my own. and come back to realizing what a gift all those experiences were, challenging though they may have been. I needed the challenges and the gifts to be who I am today.
That's right.
I would not be in this line of work, but for the parent who is an elected official. I would not have the skills that I have if it weren't for both my parents. I would not be the person I am today.
Yeah.
If it were not for them. The choices they made and didn't.
That's right.
Right? The burdens they carried and the love that they shared for each other and for us. That itself is a privilege.
That's
think
right.
about it.
That's right.
So it has really shaped how I view the world. It wasn't just about living up to an image. It's also living up to a duty. I was raised to believe that I have a duty to serve and that there is no higher calling than serving others. And I, now do that in the corporate space.
I love that. And the word that's also coming up for me is gratitude. I'm hearing a lot of gratitude.
Oh,
right? Like,
I'm glad because I need to work on my gratitude.
Well, I love it because you come to some sort of reckoning where you're like, look, my parents, they gave me a lot of good things, that came out of this. Now I can use it. I can be, some of it I'll repurpose, some of it I'll just give away to others or disregard, but there's a lot of good stuff there. Obviously we make, do you make all of, how can I put this to make sense? All the decisions you made or some of the, were they your courage or were there times you had to lean on other people's courage?
That's a great
you had
question.
enough to keep going, right? You had to, but it was really somebody else who you were leaning on in that season.
I think when I was living at home with my parents growing up, I think it was easier to feel courageous because you have this foundation, right? I can fall back on my parents' love, support, whatever it is. And also for me, when I was younger, I was like headstrong, confident, maybe even arrogant. You couldn't tell me nothing, right? So
you were bulletproof.
Trying to be very self-aware. So, I think I had a lot of confidence then. Yeah. And also I think it was because the universe hadn't beaten me up a lot. I had a very privileged upbringing. I had tremendous opportunities. And I believe that the 2x4s that the universe sometimes delivers are some of the biggest opportunities for us to learn, develop scar tissue, and learn and grow. And so those really didn't start happening for me until I was in college.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's when I first experienced failure, rejection, death, loss, all of these big things. And that's when I really had to figure out, who am I when I cannot rely on other people's courage?
Oh, interesting. I love how you took that question. Yes. Was that jarring? And it's only 4 years. I mean, it is 4 years, but still it goes by, for me, it went by super fast. I mean,
it did go by fast. College and law school, that's when it really started, right?
Okay, yeah.
But regardless, it's somewhat of a blur because it was so jarring. I mean, when you're a know-it-all kid and then all of a sudden someone tells you they don't want you, you're like, huh? Say what? Right? When the most foundational people in your life are no longer there, and they were not only the source of your courage, but also your motivation and direction.
Right.
Who are you?
That's right.
How do you choose where to go, what to do? And so there were a number of years where I really focused on trying to figure out all the answers to those questions. Yeah. And I don't know that I would have called myself courageous necessarily. I think that I just knew I had to make it through.
Yeah.
And when I left the law and came into tech, it was also a few years after I had burned out spectacularly.
Right.
And when I decided, okay, this is how I have to get healthier, this is the kind of help I need, this is my action plan, I never felt courageous. I just felt like I have to do this to survive. And
right.
I'm lucky that those are the questions that are forcing me to look at survival and not more critical questions of, do I have a place to sleep? Do I have a way to feed myself? Right. I'm incredibly blessed.
Yeah. It was a different part of the Maslow hierarchy.
Sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, I get that. And yet you could have shrunk back from it though, right?
I sure could have.
Yeah. Right. There was a
sure
choice.
Could have.
You still chose to keep leaning in and pushing in, even without the title of courage. It's just interesting. Yeah.
That is true. And I got that from my parents too. I can guarantee you I got that from them. Thinking of my mom in particular. Shrinking. I'm also 6 feet tall, so it's physically hard for me to do.
Right.
But shrinking is not something I was ever taught to do.
No.
You might stand back and observe and strategize.
Right.
Plot, plan, mobilize. Shout out to Atlanta. But in my world, shrinking is not an option.
No.
The world will try to shrink you.
Yeah. Interesting. Right.
And so ensuring that you don't let it, that you don't support it in that effort, that to me is true courage and a form of self-love. And since courage and love both come from the heart and soul, I feel like it makes sense.
That's integration. Yeah, that's integration. Final question for you, and it's going to be a big one, so we can wrestle with it.
Because these haven't been.
As much as you want. Yeah, no, this is so natural. I love it. This feels so easy and natural. You're the Chief Diversity Officer, right? And help our audience members. Let's cast a vision of what a company looks like, what a company can look like when they take diversity seriously. They invest, they focus in it. The competitive advantages, like what is that? Give a company a glimpse 5 years into the future of if they take diversity, equity, and inclusion seriously and really back it up, and really practice what they preach. What does that company look like 5 years from now?
Thriving.
Yeah.
With customer NPS scores as high as their employee NPS scores.
Wow. Okay.
Where the experience that employees have is so engaging and the culture is so healthy that the people are willing, not just able, willing to innovate over and over for you, company. And the beauty of that innovation is improved products, improved experiences and services that are more inclusive for broader markets, more customers, and ostensibly, if you believe the research, higher earnings.
Yeah.
I think that no matter where you look in the ecosystem of a company's life cycle or the ecosystem of a company's orbit, right? There needs to be a focus on how can we optimize everything we do. And I look at my function as an optimization function for our company.
Yes.
How can we optimize the experiences of our people and the people we serve, or the people to whom we sell, or the people whom we're advising, whatever our business model and product are? How can we optimize for the better? Believing that there is better. There's always better.
Yeah.
How can we create better environments that are more attractive and more enticing to the top talent we want to attract and bring in? How are we creating an even more fruitful environment for those professionals to thrive and grow and root, right? Because turnover is expensive.
That's right. It is. Yep.
You don't want zero turnover. You want some healthy turnover,
yeah,
right? Just talk to a farmer, right? You got to turn over the soil sometimes.
That's right.
But do you know where to till the soil? Do you know what kind of seeds you're planting? Do you know the health of the soil that you're in? Do you understand the kind of fertilizer and the water you need? Because when you understand how to truly build and grow a healthy ecosystem, I mean, even Mother Nature will tell you those are diverse as well. Yeah. You will see, feel, and be able to measure the improved results no matter where you look.
Yeah.
And unless you don't need people for your business, if you don't need people if you only need robots,
Yeah.
I would argue that diversity still applies because you might need robots to do different things.
Sure.
But inclusion wouldn't apply to them because they aren't sentient beings. Inclusion is really the glue.
Yeah.
It needs to be the air you breathe. It needs to be woven into everything we do, say, think, build. Because when we do that, we're maximizing its potential reach. We're maximizing the potential positive outcomes. And we're maximizing how good we feel about bringing all of that to bear. Yeah. We, the people who are building it, we, the people who are leading it, we, the people who are buying it, whoever those people are. That's what I'd say.
I love it. And what I'm also hearing is there isn't a friction between DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion, and doing great business, right? It's a full cycle. It's a full wheel, right? No. Everything ties into,
I think the friction is artificial.
Yeah.
I think that human minds like to categorize things very easily. And the way diversity work actually started decades ago was a clumsy attempt at driving systems change. I applaud the desired outcome, and the methods were the best they could do at the time. Well, we can benefit now from decades of research, study, observation, and mistakes and wins to be able to see that this is about driving a healthy ecosystem for every human who works within it, who buys from it, who's served by it, period. So there should not be friction. It should be woven in, like your culture is customer-centric, for example. Then your customer should be inclusive. It's not like an add-on. It is an element of.